you're in the right place. Girls Can Tell with Trent Erickson.
During the summer between 7th and 8th grade, something happened that changed the course of my life. Actually, it was 4 things. I got my braces off, I got a perm, a cool haircut, and I completely revamped my entire wardrobe. Every visible change was made to my appearance, and I showed up to school in the fall looking like a completely different person. Same school with the same classmates, but most of them didn't even recognize me. They would literally ask me if I was new this year and where I was from. Suddenly, the most popular girl in school was talking to me. Her name was Anne. Her family was well off, like owns a number of horses well off. They lived on this massive estate that looked like something out of Dallas, a TV show I used to watch with my mom on Friday nights. Don't tell anyone. It wasn't quite the same sprawling ranch, but to me, it might as well have been. I start getting invited to parties I was never invited to before. The cool group, the ones I'd only watched from a distance for the past year, suddenly knew my name. The whole thing felt so strange that I thought it was a joke. I thought they were literally making fun of me. They weren't. Because inside, I still felt like that awkward kid with braces and the bowl haircut. Nothing internal changed, just the outside. And that feeling, it never went away. I'm 53 now, just moved to a trendy Chicago neighborhood. I've been on the radio for over 30 years. I teach college. I run a podcast or two. I've objectively moved up in life. And I often still feel like that 12-year-old trying to figure out why the cool kids are talking to me. This episode is about the perception gap. It's the difference between how you see yourself and how everyone else sees you, and why those two things almost never line up. Let me paint the full picture of what happened between 7th and 8th grade. Before that summer, I was invisible. Not bullied or hated, just not noticed. I had a couple of good friends, but I wasn't part of the social ecosystem that mattered. I watched the popular kids from a distance and assumed that's just how it would always be. Then, in one summer, I got the braces that I felt like I'd worn forever off. I got a perm and a totally revamped haircut with a whole new wardrobe of stylish clothes. And when I walked into school that fall, people I'd gone to school with for years didn't recognize me. The weird thing was, I didn't feel any different. I still felt like that same dorky, invisible kid who was in the after-school model rocket club not 4 months prior. I just looked different on the outside. Then Anne started talking to me. You see, Anne was the most popular girl in school. Not just popular, but she was the center of everything. If she liked you, anyone who was anyone liked you. If she didn't, you didn't exist. And suddenly, she liked me. Somehow we started dating, and I was brought into this world I had no reference for. Her family had money. Real money. They had horses. They lived on this estate with all this land. Now, to me, it looked like the house from Dallas, and I'd never been in a house like that. My family was fine. We were successful, but we weren't horse and land successful. This was on a completely different level. Every time I was at her house, and every time I was at a party with her friends, I felt like I didn't belong, like I was playing a role I wasn't qualified to be in. I kept waiting for someone to figure out I was a fraud. I just knew any moment men in white coats with clipboards were going to bust in and say, "All right, you're coming with us," never to be heard from again, and that would be that. But even though those men never came, the feeling never left. That relationship lasted 2, maybe 3 years, and I spent most of it uncomfortable and convinced it wasn't real. I kept breaking up with her, not because I wanted to, because I didn't feel good enough. Now I know that's what it was, but at the time, I just knew I felt uncomfortable and out of place, like I needed to regain some control over a situation I didn't understand. So I'd break up with her, then we'd get back together, then I'd break up with her again. Looking back, I guess I was testing whether she'd come back, whether this whole thing was real or if I'd just imagined it. And then one summer, I didn't hear from her for a few days, which was weird. We talked all the time. When I finally got a hold of her, she told me she'd met someone else and wanted to break up. Her name was Lyndon. Now here's the thing. She'd routinely told me how much she hated Lyndon, said he constantly made fun of her in their shared class, said she couldn't stand him. He was one of those guys who was well-dressed like me, only he had a distinct advantage. He owned a pair of bowling shoes he stole from a bowling alley and showed up to school wearing them, which obviously made him cooler than all of us. And she ended up with him. They dated for years after that. I don't blame her. I pushed her away so many times she finally stayed away. But what I remember most is the feeling that I'd been right all along. I never really belonged in that world. That eventually someone would figure it out, and they eventually did. Except it wasn't them. It was me. I convinced myself I didn't belong until I made it true. Here's the thing about that 7th grade transformation. It set a pattern I've been repeating my entire life. External situations change, but the internal identity doesn't. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I'm having dinner with someone in a trendy part of the city, and afterwards we're walking through the neighborhood talking, and I catch myself thinking, this is a beautiful area. I wish I could live here. And then I remember, this is where I'm living. But I didn't feel like someone who belonged there, like I was walking through a neighborhood meant for people who have their shit together, and I was just passing through. Or take my career. I've been on the radio for 30 years, teaching digital media and broadcasting at a college in Chicago. When students find out I've been on the air that long, they react in one of 3 ways. Indifference, because radio doesn't impress a 21-year-old anymore. Disbelief, because they or their parents have been listening to me for years and they can't believe I'm teaching their class. Excitement. They've been listening to me and didn't expect to ever meet me. And every time someone reacts with anything other than indifference, I think, it's just me. I'm just a normal guy doing a job. To them, I'm an experienced industry vet whose voice they've heard for years. But to me, I'm just going to work like everyone else. I mean, I guess I do that work in front of hundreds of thousands of people, but still, I can't get my head around the idea that they see me the way I used to see famous people when I was their age. I figured out there are 3 versions of you. Version 1, who you think you are. This is the internal narrative, the story you tell yourself based on every failure, rejection, and every moment you felt like you didn't belong. For me, it's still the kid with braces and the bowl haircut who somehow tricked people into thinking he was cool. Version 2, what others think of you. This is the external perception, based on where you live, what you do, how you speak, and how you dress, basically how you present yourself. Others see the 30-year-old radio vet, the guy moving to a trendy area, the college professor with credibility. They see the resume, not the doubt. Version 3 is who you actually are. This is the truth that lies somewhere in between those 2 extremes. But the problem is no one can see this version clearly. Not you. You're too close to your own insecurities, and they're too far away to see the full picture. And these 3 versions almost never align. The perception gap exists because you're comparing 2 completely different sets of information. You see every mistake, every time you felt like a fraud, and every breakup, every moment of doubt. You have decades of evidence that you're not as put together as you look. What others see are the results. The job, the apartment, the clothes, the career. They can only see external markers of success. They just see the outcome, not the process of getting there. Neither perspective is complete, so they never match. And the weird part is, you'll never know which one is accurate. You can't see yourself from the outside, and even when people tell you how they see you, you won't believe them, because it doesn't align with the story you've been telling yourself. The perception gap explains so much about how we are in the world. In dating, I have a strict screening process for dating apps. I filter out 98% of matches before they ever get to a date. To me, I'm protecting my time. I'm being selective because I know what I want. But maybe to them, I'm impossible to please. Maybe they see me as someone who thinks I'm too good for everyone. I can't know because I can't see it from their side. In career, my students see a guy who's been on the air for 3 decades, someone with credibility and experience, someone who's made it. I see someone who's still figuring it out, someone who shows up to work and does their job because it's what I like, and I know how to do it. I don't feel like I've made it. I just feel like I've been doing this for a long time. In the living situation, I've moved up several times in the same building over 5 years, each time to a slightly better unit. Then I moved to the nicest unit in the building. Now I'm moving to a sought-after area in the city. Objectively, I've been climbing, but I still feel like the guy who's renting that shitty apartment many years ago. I still feel like I'm barely keeping it together. From the outside, it looks like steady progress. From the inside, it sometimes feels like I'm one bad month away from sliding backwards. Here's what I should have learned from Anne in the 8th grade. When your life changes, your identity doesn't automatically change with it. External transformation doesn't mean internal reformation. You can get the braces off, change your wardrobe, move to a better neighborhood, build a 30-year career, and still feel like the kid who doesn't belong. But here's what actually happened. I learned the opposite lesson. I learned that even when people accept you, you shouldn't believe it. Because eventually they'll figure out you're a fraud. So you might as well push them away first. That's what I did with Anne. I broke up with her over and over until she finally stayed away. And when she ended up with Lyndon, it confirmed what I already believed, that I didn't belong there. Except that's not what happened. What actually happened was I sabotaged something real because I couldn't accept that it was real. And I've been doing that ever since. Now I'm telling you this story because I think a lot of us live in this gap. We discount our own progress because it doesn't feel like progress, it just feels like life. We assume everyone else has it figured out because we can only see their external results, not their internal doubts. We hold on to identities from decades ago because they're familiar, even when they're no longer true. And we reject good things, relationships, opportunities, compliments, because they don't match the story we've been telling ourselves about who we are. Anne died about 10 or 15 years ago. Brain aneurysm. When I found out, I thought about that relationship, about how I pushed her away because I couldn't believe she actually wanted to be with me, about how I spent 2 years convinced it was temporary. Now, I don't know if things would have been different if I'd just believed her when she showed me that she wanted to be there. Probably not. We were kids. But maybe I wouldn't have spent the next 40 years repeating the same pattern. The reality is the perception gap never closes. You'll never see yourself the way others see you. You will never fully believe the evidence that contradicts your internal story. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the goal isn't to close the gap. Maybe it's just to recognize that it exists. To know that when you look in the mirror, you're not seeing the full picture. And to know that when others look at you, they're not seeing it either. And maybe to stop sabotaging good things because they don't match the story you've been telling yourself since 7th grade. I'm 53. I've been in radio for 30 years. I'm moving to a nice part of the city. I teach college to students who think I'm more impressive than I feel. And I still feel like the kid with braces trying to figure out why the cool kids are talking to me. I am the cool kid now. I just can't see it yet.